And yet in Japan, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's a completely different culture. It's a completely different ballgame. The fact that a value of a home is of how new it is, how structurally robust it is, and that comes from newer homes. And so, yeah, the concept of older homes here is not as valued or is not as romanticized, if you will, as it is in the West.
One thing that is the same all over the world, the West, and it sounds like Japan too, is that young people don't want to go and live in the country.
That is very, very true. And I think that's one thing that you see more acutely here in Japan and in rural areas, is that when you go, you can see them shrinking. I think the concept on its own of an empty home seems benign, but actually it's not. Because if you're a village that's emptying out, it's almost like you're going extinct, because it becomes a ghost town, and it becomes more off-putting the emptier it is. And it becomes less of a good option for a young family to go live in an area that's emptying out.
Why do the local councils not just knock these homes down?
When you knock them down, you need permissions from family members and from those who inherit. And I think this is where it gets complicated, because the homes themselves are not valuable. The land is valuable. But who gets the land? How do you track people down, for example? Because again, if people die and leave a home, you need to track those family members down. And if they haven't followed up, and if they're hard to find because, for example, they're not in Japan or they live in Tokyo somewhere and not in the village, that becomes a very difficult proposition. But also, what do you do with the land? Who gets right to the land? So as long as they're homes, it's almost like it's a contained problem. When they become land, that becomes a different problem.
Any conversation about Japan, it doesn't matter how short or long, earthquakes come up. It's come up a few times already in our conversation, Shaima. But given how earthquake-prone Japan is, empty houses sitting there surely also present some kind of hazard. Is that an issue?
Yes, I've seen that firsthand. You know, in the new year, when an earthquake happened in the Noto Peninsula, when you go there and you see the smaller villages and you see older houses that have either been completely destroyed or they've been affected and they're kind of like leaning on their side, waiting to be destroyed or waiting to completely collapse, that is actually dangerous for the houses next to them and the houses on the other side of the road. And I've seen that in many of the streets where people have trouble getting into their own home.